Hello, welcome back to another episode of How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are. Today we're chatting to the incredibly talented Heather from Sash and Unveiling. Now, as her business name suggests, Heather specialises in creating beautifully bespoke, handcrafted wedding veils, and they really are stunning. I was lucky enough to visit Heather in her studio to record the podcast. I saw some of her creations and they really did take my breath away. Sadly, as stunning as her designs and indeed her studio was, there was a lot of roadworks going on outside. So we couldn't record in the actual studio, and the only quiet place we could find in the building were the old police cells downstairs. So I do apologise if some of the sound is a little bit tinny or a little bit echoey in places, but there is tons and tons of really interesting information from Heather. Lots of good advice. I loved hearing about her journey from the fashion industry into the wedding world. I loved hearing about what she values, what she wants to change in the industry, how she goes about designing her incredible designs. So bear with the little bits of tinny sound here and there and enjoy today's episode. Good morning, Heather. Thanks for being part of the podcast. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on. Right, my name's Heather. My company is Sash and Unveiling, and I make and design bridal accessories, predominantly veils these days, but I did, as the name suggests, begin making sashes and garters, which I still do, but mostly veils because that's what I prefer to make.
Fantastic, yeah, and we've just been in your studio and seen some of your wonderful work. So yeah, we're looking forward to finding out your creative process and how you do what you do. So the first thing I was going to ask you was about your background in the fashion industry. Have you been in the fashion industry for a long time?
I have. I started out, I went to a school that was quite academic, and that wasn't really me. I did try and fit in. I was always quite artistic, and I liked drawing and painting and that kind of thing, and I didn't really fit into that mould of the Oxbridge feeder school. I began my career studying French and Italian, which I enjoyed, but there was still this creative thing inside me trying to get out. So I went to college as a mature student only a few years before, after everybody else, and I did a foundation course because I didn't really know whether I was any good. So I got together a portfolio at the weekends and in the evenings, and went along to, and I had a interview at London College of Fashion, and to my complete surprise they took me on there and then, and I was so surprised and so grateful.
Oh wow.
And it was probably the best year of my life because I had been working in offices and that kind of admin type roles, and then suddenly I was introduced to this world of creativity, and every day I could do something different, and I tried lots of different things, including, textiles, knit, photography a little bit, illustration, and every day was a new adventure.
A whole new world, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it all began. And I went on to do my degree, and then I started working in fashion a few weeks after I graduated. Wow,
you got employed straight away, I take it?
Luckily I did. I think our college, I went to Ravensbourne, and I think they still have a very good reputation, and it was quite a commercial course, and they did train you for working in the real world as opposed to just making pretty unwearable garments.
Yeah, conceptual items.
Yeah, exactly. So luckily I did manage to work, and I was older, and by that point I had a mortgage as well, so I needed to. Desperation.
Fantastic. So what made you sort of progress from there and work in the wedding industry and specialise in what you do now?
Well, funnily enough, the first company I worked for, and one of the first jobs I worked on, was a wedding veil, even though it wasn't a bridal company she was a high-end couture designer, and she used to produce lots of beautiful garments, and people did come to her sometimes for weddings. And as I was new, I was asked to work on this wedding veil, which was covered. It was a Midsummer Night's Dream themed wedding, and it was covered in flowers. And so I was asked, myself and somebody else, I can't remember who it was now, but anyway, the two of us worked on this veil, just putting loads and loads of flowers over it. So I think probably that's where it all began. And then I continued working in the fashion industry as a designer until I moved out of London, really. And then when I moved out of London, I started, because surface decoration had always been my thing.
Right.
So the actual, even though I like designing the shapes, actually putting those, the beading, the embroidery, the colour, just adding something to the surface of a fabric was what I really enjoyed.
Okay.
So I think bridal gives me that free rein, because you can go a bit more. You can get a bit more creative with a veil, particularly with a gown. With a
bit more unique, and it's all those finishing touches that make the difference.
Yeah, so I think that's where it started.
Fantastic. And you're enjoying what you do, and you still coming up with new designs? And
I love it. I really love it. What I do find quite difficult is, as I become busier and keeping up with getting the orders out. Obviously, you have to get the orders out on time, which I'm very, very strict about. But it's then finding time to develop new ideas.
Yeah.
To keep, the creativity going. And how I do that is, there's quite a few styled shoots that happen in our industry. So quite often I'll be asked to do something, especially for a styled shoot. Or a bride will come to me with her own ideas, and then I'll say, then we'll start designing together.
Yeah.
And from that, I've had several designs that I carry in my collection now that have started out as a bride has come to me with that idea.
Okay.
I've made the veil for her, and then I've carried the idea on and thought, that's a good idea.
And made it your own and
made it
personalised it.
Else.
Yeah.
And that's how I managed to keep the brand fresh and develop new ideas.
Brilliant. Where do you find most of your brides? Where do they find you?
It's changed. To begin with, it was Facebook at the very beginning. Now I have a physical studio, so I have a space where brides can come and see me and try on their dress with their veil. So I do find brides locally. But then I think that comes from Instagram, because Instagram's massive for me.
Yeah.
I usually hashtag my town, or I put my location, so I do get people coming in like that. And also Etsy. I've got an Etsy shop. And I get a lot of overseas brides via Etsy, America and Australia predominantly. Fantastic. So it's good to have lots of different streams, I think.
Yeah, you can't rely on just one, and things are always changing, so you can't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and you have to be present on a variety of platforms, really.
That's true. You need the time to be everywhere, but you have to. You have to find the time.
Yeah, you do.
The way it is these days.
Absolutely. So obviously you enjoy what you do and working in the wedding industry. What is it you love about the wedding industry, and is there anything you're seeking to improve about the wedding industry through the business that you do?
The thing I love about the wedding industry is that it's a happy occasion.
Yes.
So everybody that comes to you is excited, and especially with what I do, because I do the last, because quite often it's one of the last things that a bride will buy is their veil.
Yeah.
So she's got the stressful bits and pieces out of the way, the venue and the photographer and all the big things. And then the veil is one of the last things. So it's usually the less stressy part of the wedding journey.
Right.
So I really enjoy that, and I love seeing brides' ideas and looking at their photos. They bring their photos and so on. So I really like that. And I also like, from the wedding industry generally, it seems to be very inclusive and friendly. I've got a lovely network of local wedding people, and also online I've got to know people in other countries sometimes. So and it does seem to be quite collaborative and inclusive and helpful. People are supportive. I think I found that that's probably more so than in the fashion. I don't like to generalise, and things change, but probably more so than I found in the fashion business.
Right. Okay.
But maybe it's just the way things are now.
And it might just be a change in times in general. Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of kindness movement and supporting each other, and
that's brilliant. Yeah, that's really good. Is there anything that you're trying to challenge, or you'd like to sort of see change in the industry?
I mean, several different things. Like, I think we're all on the trying to save the planet thing now, and so I try and buy consciously. So the fabrics I buy, I'm very aware of where they come from. I know the origins and trims and beads and that kind of thing. I try and be on top of where they've originated. Packaging is another thing. I try and keep down the plastic. I try and buy, or I do buy, packaging that is eco-friendly as far as I can.
Fantastic.
And as regards the industry representation of brides, I think there needs to be more representation of different groups, like not just the size 6, beautiful model type. I think, and there does seem to be a movement away from that. Some of the blogs are trying to
slowly starting to incorporate diversity.
I think it'll be a while, but there's definitely
a shift. There is a definite shift. It just takes time for that to become the norm, doesn't it? It still work to be done, I think.
Definitely, lots of work, but I think it's going in the right direction, but slowly, so maybe it needs a bit of a
bit more of a push, but we've all got to just keep on with it, haven't we? And sort of, again, working collaboratively helps with making changes like that, doesn't it?
Trying to get more style shoots that represent different brides.
You want everyone getting married to see themselves represented in one form or another. And I think there's still certain groups of people that are planning a wedding that don't see themselves in any of the media or any of the images online that they see. So I think it's really important that we do sort of promote that shift in thinking and representation, which is
absolutely.
Great. So tell us a little bit about if a bride comes to you with an idea or sees you on Instagram. What's that process from initially contacting you right through to creating that veil?
Right, well, first of all, sometimes brides will reach out to me on Instagram with a direct message or Facebook or an email, and at that point I will then say, can you email me, and then we'll start a conversation by email, which is the easiest. Or sometimes I'll say, if you want to phone me. Some people like to phone and have a chat, which I like to do as well, because a lot of work is done online. It's nice to actually speak.
Definitely,
meet if possible, but speaking is good too. So there's that initial contact, and I will usually say I will send out samples of the fabrics, because even if brides come and see me, it's good if they see the fabrics first and see whether that's the sort of thing they want, whether it matches the dress, whether it's what they have in mind. So that's the very first thing. And then sometimes brides will send me images of their dress or their actual, sometimes when they've been in the shop and having their fitting. If they're allowed to take photos, then they'll send me photos of their fitting so I can see the dress.
That's really good.
And I also like to see the hairstyle if they've got images of how they're having their hair, because that's quite
all ties in, absolutely. It's all got to go together.
How you wear your veil, because I make particular veils for particular hairstyles. So
the
drape veils are made for a particular hairstyle, and I make the veil combs are placed in such a way that they can be worn under the hairstyle or over the hairstyle.
Okay.
So that kind of thing. So once we've decided on that, then I will either send them an illustration. If it's a more complicated design, then they might want to see an illustration, especially if it's bespoke, or images from my website, or images of veils I've made before, which are similar, that kind of thing. So particularly if I'm not meeting the bride, I like them to know exactly what they're getting before it gets sent to them, so that there's nothing that's a surprise. They know everything. They know the width, because width is really important of the veil. It can make such a difference to how the veil looks.
Oh, of course,
So sometimes you don't realise things like that. So all those kinds of detail, I like them to be completely sure of. So that emails go back and forth like that, or they come in and see me, or we have a phone chat. Then once we've decided on the design, then I ask them when they'd like the veil to be with them by ideally, and then I'll find because I'm quite old-fashioned. I have a big desk diary with all my appointments and my production.
I still have a written diary as well. Yeah, I have an online one, but I keep the written one up to date a little bit better. Yeah,
that's how I like to work. So I write it down on my desk diary, and then I tell them that that's the day your veil will be made, and then it gets sent out, or they'll come in and collect it. That's possible too. So that's my process.
Brilliant. So it's all about open communication and
absolutely,
working together and
no surprises.
No horror surprises. Yeah, that's really important though, isn't it?
Because for me as well, if I'm making something really big and elaborate, I don't want to have to remake it. Or it works both ways. It has to be, and sometimes it's just a few weeks before the wedding, so I don't want my bride to be stressed by having to change something.
No, absolutely.
So it all has to be, just so.
So what advice would you give to brides who are deciding what style of veil to have, or still thinking about style in general for their wedding? What tips can you give to them?
Tips I was given as a design student, I think. It's really lovely to look at other people's weddings on Pinterest. There's loads and loads of information out there, and I encourage that as well. But I would also say look at things that you like yourself, like look at, films and maybe artwork or anything, fabric or anything that you're into, music, just your own, what's your own style? Look at yourself and think what you like, or you and your partner.
That's a really good tip.
What really gets you going, and maybe make even a separate Pinterest board of that. And you might find you come up with something completely different. I mean, still feed into ideas, because there's loads of wonderful inspiration out there on blogs and so on, and that is great to use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you can inform that with your own ideas and your own little takes.
Yeah, it's using it for inspiration as opposed to, that's what I've got to have because that's what's out there. Yeah, definitely.
So you'll find that it might be something like that, but you'll have your own bits and pieces on there, even bits from magazines, exhibitions you've been to. I don't know, just be a sponge.
Yeah.
Just take it all in.
Yeah. But start from what you like. That's a really good tip. Yeah, definitely.
And it's never too early to begin either, I would say. So.
Yeah, and
just keep collecting.
Yeah, as soon as you know. Well, a lot of brides probably start collecting before they've even had the ring on their finger, but
very probably. Yeah, colours and just everything, flowers. I don't know.
So you say you've done quite a few style shoots. So they quite, like you say, they're good for your creativity and trying out new designs and.
They are. It's good for that. It's good to sometimes if they want a particular, the organiser wants a particular veil that isn't available, then I will try and make that for the shoot. But it's also good for me to try out my new designs on models and see how they actually work before I put them on my website, before I offer them for sale. So it's good for me too to see. I might think, that colour's not quite right, or that veil needs to be wider, or that lace is,
It's sort of a safe space to explore and think outside the box a little bit for everyone involved, I expect.
Yeah, definitely. It's lovely to meet other people on style shoots as well, even if I'm not there, because quite often I can't go to them because my day-to-day is quite busy just making. But if I can go along, I do, because I do love to meet other people. Otherwise, we often chat online and get to know people that way. So
it's really good. Yeah, it's a good networking opportunity. Absolutely. And then when you meet brides and they're still looking for someone, or they don't know, a good florist or whatever, at least you can recommend having worked with them and know that you can, a bride can trust them. I think it's all very well seeing a nice photo online, but if you haven't sort of had the experience of interacting and doing business with them, it's hard to make that recommendation, isn't it?
Definitely, because with a styled shoot as well, although it is a styled shoot, you're still working to a deadline. You still have to have your piece, whatever it is, ready for that day and delivered to that. So it's good to have worked with other people and know how they work and how professional they are and how they work to deadlines, and then, like you say, you can then recommend those people onwards to your brides, and with confidence, and that you have actually worked with them. So
it is recommended with confidence, because obviously you don't want the bride to be let down, but again, you've got your brand to protect as well. So any recommendation you make that doesn't meet their expectations, you've done damage to your own brand and business reputation, haven't you? So yeah, that's really important. Exactly. Do you have any tips for working with veil or dress designers in general for brides? Is there things that they should particularly look out for, particularly avoid?
Well, if you're working with a dress designer, so somebody is designing your dress for you or your veil, what I would say is try not to go to the designer with a photo of someone else's work.
Right.
I have had that before. Can you make this for me? No, actually. Because not only is I wouldn't do it, also it doesn't give me any fulfillment, or wouldn't give me any fulfillment. No. Just replicating somebody else's work, it's unfair on that designer, and it wouldn't give me any pleasure or so and I'm sure it would be the same for anybody. So what I would say is, if you do have some ideas, maybe jumble them up, lots of different ideas, and say, can you use this kind of thing for inspiration? This is the kind of thing I want, but just be prepared for the designer to say they'll put their own take on it. I would say that, and as much information as you can give about the rest of your wedding is useful. When it comes to veils, sometimes it's useful to have known if they've tried any. Sometimes brides will go and have their dress fitting and they will have tried on veils before.
Oh, right.
So it's useful to know whether there's anything that you've liked wearing. If you like a long veil, some brides feel a bit claustrophobic if it's too long, or too much over or sometimes the drop veils, the Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton type over the face veils. Some brides don't like the feel of it over their face. It's a lovely look, but it's not for everybody. So,
and I guess with a veil as well, it's not something you wear all the time. So shoes, whether you can get those heels or whatever, but a veil's quite an alien concept for people, isn't it?
And quite often I get brides that will apologise and almost saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know much about this, but what does this terminology mean?" And I'm like, "Well, why would you know?" Of course you wouldn't know. I'm quite happy to advise and let you and help you out. But with veils, it's good to know how you're going to wear your hair and how your dress is. How long your dress is, how long you want the veil to be. Another important thing to consider is whether your dress is beaded, because some veiling does get caught on beads.
Right. Okay.
It's the little claw set beads, which aren't so popular now actually, but it's good to know whether you've got. If I'm selling to you remotely online or something, it's always good to let me know. So that
things like that, the practicalities of it, absolutely.
And also when I send out a sample to you, if you kind of sort of brush that past your dress, you can usually get an idea as to whether it's going to be a problem on the day. Because you don't want your veil caught up in your dress.
No. You don't want it's the last thing you want to be worrying about when you're walking down the aisle, is it? You just want to look at the one you're going to be marrying in a few minutes' time and glide down. Fantastic. So one thing I always ask my guests to do is to answer the question, I wish someone had told me. So is there anything, doesn't have to be related to what you do, prior to your own wedding or being a guest at a wedding, if you wished you'd known before you'd been at that wedding, a bit of advice that you would have liked to have received?
Yes, a piece of advice I give to my brides, and I would have given to myself. I don't know why I didn't, because I got married when I was already in the wedding industry. A lot of people that were in the wedding industry tend to start after they got married, but I'd already been doing this for a couple of years. And I always said to my brides, make sure you try your veil on with your dress before your wedding so that you know if it's going to work. Well, I didn't do that. I think because I've thought about this. I think because I knew I had, and I thought I knew for a start. Because it's what I do. And I had a whole rail of veils to choose from. I thought, oh no, that one will work. And I didn't. And it was the morning of my wedding, actually, that I put the veil on that I thought was going to work, and it didn't. And luckily, I had, 20, 25 veils, and I chose another one which worked really well. But I thought, this is what I tell my brides to do all the time. And
you didn't do it.
I thought I knew, and I didn't know. So what I would say is, try it all on together. If you're coming in to see me, then bring your dress. it's really good to bring your dress with you and your shoes so that you know the height you're going to be, and you can try the whole thing on together. Because so often a bride will come in with an idea for a veil and she'll realise it's not the right one, and she'll go for something completely different. I think that's the same with dresses as well. I've heard dress shops say the same. And also, like I said earlier, the width of a veil, if you're very short or if you're quite slight, then a wide veil can be a bit overwhelming.
Right, okay.
And also it can take away some of the detail at the back of your dress, so it's quite often good to choose a narrow or a medium width veil.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, just those details that you don't realise when you're looking at photos online. So take my own advice would be my advice
that you didn't
to myself.
follow.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason why brides don't? Do you think maybe they just want that sort of magical moment sort of on the day itself, and they don't want to sort of ruin that feeling? Or do you think they just don't think about the practicalities?
I think that quite often, although it seems to be changing, the veil and some of the other accessories are sometimes a bit of an afterthought.
Right.
Like obviously the dress is the main event, but the veil is really important because it's the first thing that you will be, when you walk into your ceremony area, everybody's going to look at your face. So therefore, they're going to look at your veil, they're going to see your veil. And I've seen, sadly, several times, not my veil by the way, I've seen several photos where the dress has been beautiful, but the veil has been, not good, maybe just doesn't work with the dress.
Okay.
And it might have been something that the bride hadn't thought of till the last minute, or hadn't tried it all on together like me. Or, I think it's really important to spend some time choosing your veil, thinking about the look you want, rather than it being an afterthought.
Yeah.
I think give it some time as well. Once you've got that amazing dress, then you really need something that's gonna set that amazing dress off as well.
Yeah, it's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. There's loads and loads of useful information in there, so I'm sure people have picked up some wonderful tips from you. Just before we go, share with the listeners how they can see your work and get in touch with you.
Okay, well, I'm on Instagram. Try and make it daily, but it's usually every other day. And my stories, you can see on my stories what I'm up to daily. I've got my website and Facebook.
So your Instagram is at Sash and Veil?
At Sash and Veil. And my website is www.sashandveil.co.uk. And my email, hello@sashandveil.co.uk, or you just give me a ring. My telephone number's on my website, I think, on my Facebook and Instagram as well. So
Brilliant.
Very happy to chat. So, well, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming.
Really good.
No, it's been wonderful. As ever, you can email me on info@rosswellshphotography.co.uk, or you can visit my website at rosswellshphotography.co.uk, and we'll be back very soon. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Take care.
It's been a pleasure.